Hello and welcome to Into the Light. I'm your host, Edina Mauvana. Today we have Charissa Sims. She's a speaker, a healer, a workshop leader, and host of the Zen Success Show and the best-selling author of Change Your Energy, Change Your Life, and the author of numerous children's books. After being diagnosed with cancer, she was able to heal her body without Western medicine in 2021. And she is now on a mission to help heal the world and inspire others that they too can heal themselves. Amazing. Welcome, Charissa. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. I'm so excited to be on your show, to be in your vibration and your frequency, and just to feel your joy. And the name of your podcast is so perfect. Into the Light. Let's go into the light.
I love it. Yes, it's like the theme of our lives right now, right? We're moving into light, moving into higher frequencies. I love how it's aligned also with the spiritual and religious practice as well. So thank you for that. And I was honored to be on your show just a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
So Zen Success, I love it. It's launching big and getting a lot of activity. So I'm excited for that episode to be out soon too.
Yeah, definitely. I'll let you know when it's released. Absolutely. It was good.
And you had another podcast too, not only Zen Success, right?
I did. Previously, I had a podcast called You Inspired. And a lot of the episodes, I would do a healing meditation based on the topic. So that's how I differentiated it. And then I started Zen Success. It's just been about a year and a half now, in 2022.
Okay, great. So that's awesome. You're obviously putting out a lot of content, and then you're also doing coaching work as well, right? So you're working with people to help heal themselves and things like that. Can you tell me a little bit about that work and what you really do with your clients right now?
So I consider myself a guide. Whatever issue that they're having in their life, whether it be relationships, abundance, or if they're just experiencing a lot of stress, if they don't like their job. So I can help activate the healing powers that we all have within us. So we're more powerful together. So I can sense the blocks within people and I can let them know. So I do a free 15-minute call, and it's an intuitive reading, and I can see what's blocking them from meeting the love of their life or making the money that they deserve, or whatever it might be, having the job or business of their dreams. So I can see they're repeating this pattern. This is something that needs to be healed. And a lot of times when people come to me, they've done a lot of work on their own and have worked with other healers. And so I would say coming to me almost seems like, I don't want to say the last resort, but sometimes people have had issues for like 20 years, 10 years, and they're just done. They have that energy. I'm ready. Let's go. And that is so important to get to the next level, to have that enough of this. I'm ready to live my best life.
Amazing. I love that. We all get fed up at a certain point, and then we really start investing in ourselves and making decisions to see practitioners and healers and do this work. So
it's so true. And it's like I say 100%, but most of my clients are referrals. So, when people start to experience those amazing feelings and have that sense of freedom and joy in their life and start attracting the right partner. I've worked with a lot of people who attract narcissists, different codependent relationships, and we're not really meant to be in that type of relationship. We're really meant to be in a more loving, equal, unconditional love relationship. So making them aware of that.
And we have to heal ourselves first a lot of times and improve our own vibrational frequency, right, in order to attract that partner. So
and get rid of the pattern. It's just like usually it's a pattern from their parents and their parents, usually in their I can see it. and then we have to remove it. Or it could be a cord attachment. For example, I had someone who was in a relationship and they're like, I can't get over this guy. I know he's not good for me. And I saw that they were in a past life together and they
Mm,
were actually dependent on each other for survival. And they
mm.
had a very strong cord attachment. And it took a few sessions. I think it took like 5 sessions. The cord kept coming back because he could sense her pulling away and he would call her. So sometimes cords can come back.
Yeah,
And
especially when we're thinking of them or they're coming into our
you
conscious
reignite
mind.
that connection. Right. Yeah. So that's just one example of one of the issues that I've helped my clients with.
Oh, I love that you shared an example because we can all relate to that. And so you said you do the 15-minute and then, so what are you doing? Is this kind of like what people talk about? I know you're using your empathic abilities and your intuitive skills to do a reading, it sounds like. Is this where people start talking about moving into medical issues too, or physical pains, or what are you actually picking up on when you're doing this reading of a person?
That's such an excellent question. So I believe I'm tapping into the quantum field, the collective
Uh-huh.
consciousness, the all knowing of all that ever was and is and will be, or potential, because we have infinite potential possibilities for our future because we co-create, hopefully, if we're conscious, can co-create our future. So I'm tapping into that and it's very fast for me. I guess because I've been doing it for so long, you could consider it psychic, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not projecting. I'm not saying this is going to be your future
Oh,
or
that's different. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not saying that. It's more of the now moment. What's happening right now? So I can just tap into that and see what's going to be the highest and best good for this person. So I do have spirits that also come in to help me and give me a little boost, especially for the healing. So we're all doing the healing together. For the reading, it might be just like 1 or 2 guides, ascended masters, it could be goddesses. A lot of goddess energy is coming through right now because we're even for men to step into that letting go and releasing. And the goddesses are just like, now is the time to step into that power of the feminine.
Like I hear that a lot with the divine feminine energies
Mhm.
coming in.
You've
With
heard that a
those.
lot from
Oh
your
yeah.
other people you're interviewing, right?
Yeah, that and just
Yeah.
my own reading. I started reading about Magdalene awakening awareness, and
Mhm.
actually there was another healer that did a reading with me, or we were doing a session,
Mhm.
and she was saying the Magdalene kept coming in, and that's a personal something I'm drawn to personally in my own life, just having been through certain religious things and then marriage things and then now coming out of it as an empowered female. Yeah, and I think a lot of us are resonating with these divine feminine, like you said, energies. And so you also said you're doing the work with these light beings, or they're assisting in this work, is that right? Like, as opposed to some people, maybe they how we said psychics or something. I don't know if people use sometimes negative energies or entities, but it sounds like you're very focused on light energy as opposed to dark energies or things like that. Is that right?
It's such a good question because just like people, spirits can be good or they can be naughty or they can be not necessarily for our highest good. They can play
Oh.
tricks and just because you have a spirit guide doesn't mean they're always in it for your highest and best good. They could have ulterior motives. So what I always like to say is what you said, beings of the light, and also for that person's highest and best good. I don't allow any energies or entities to come in that aren't of the highest and best good for that individual and for me. So people can have another thing that I can see is entities that are not beneficial for that person. They could be attached to their body and also integrated into their being. And that could be causing their depression. And they don't even realize that it's not them. It's this entity that has taken over part of their being. And so I can
Wow.
also ask that entity, are you ready to ascend to heaven?
Oh, wow.
So because they're not meant to be stuck to us. They're meant
Okay.
to be, they can come give us messages, a lot of spirits are earthbound. They don't know they're earthbound. That's like haunted houses and things like that.
Mm,
But anyway, so with the spirits attached, that is a beautiful process that not all spirits are ready for. But after a few sessions, usually they warm up to the idea. Heaven is for everyone. I know that might be a bold statement, but if people feel worthy, it's all how they're feeling when they die, then they can go into the space that has been called by other afterlife experts as Summerland or highest level. So there's all sorts of names. I just call it
haven't you? Well, so many, I don't know, we have this concept of what religions teach us about heaven and hell. And
Mhm.
so it sounds like you're really have some expertise on what that is that we're trying to do in this life or achieve heaven in this life, as
Yeah.
opposed to this concept where it's the hereafter or the next life. Is that's a little bit problematic, and also that judgment between going to heaven and hell, right? So many of us
Yeah,
have
that's
that's a
right.
difficult.
Because hell is really, it's not like what other people think of it. It's self-made. It's
Mm,
like the person chooses it. It's kind of like purgatory. They're
mhm,
they're just like, they don't feel worthy to go to the divine, to God, whatever it might be. So then
mm.
they just need a little bit of help to go like into the light. Your
Yeah.
podcast.
It's interesting that you said they don't feel worthy, because that to me, it sounds like that negative self-talk. And
Yes.
I created a meme one time because I come from a Muslim background, and we have this concept of wiswas, which is the whispering of Satan, or in your ear you have that whisperings from, and
Oh,
it's like negative self-talk.
yeah.
It's the real wiswas. You can't do this.
Interesting.
It takes us to the hellfire and into that state of like unworthiness, where, and then that's also what's preventing you from even being connected to God and to source and to all of that. And it sounds to me like that's where a lot of religions have like guilt and the shame, and then you don't feel like you're ever connected to God, right? And there's that separation. And then of course we go into the illusion of separation as
That's
a
right.
unity consciousness, right?
And the whole business model that you created of this unity consciousness collective, which is
Yeah.
incredible. Your mission is so amazing
Oh,
and
thank
unique.
you.
How you're helping people connect with the right healers. You're helping us all ascend. Your book, Ascension, is a new attraction. It's just so beautiful. That's why I was like, I have to be on your show.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Yes, I do believe strongly in this unity consciousness concept. And even in Islam, there's this oneness of Allah, oneness of God, and
Mhm.
oneness with. So I believe that leads into that resonating with over 2 billion Muslims on the planet. On some level, we have this understanding of a unity consciousness. It's not, this is actually more in line with what Muslims believe, in alignment with God, than like intermediaries or people in between you and God. And I know
Mm.
in the spiritually aware community we have a lot of like people who have been like false gurus or false, like we get these false people, right? And people are following these.
Well, yeah, because
Yeah.
power can corrupt,
Yes.
for anyone, not just spiritual, but they get, obviously they get highlighted because they're supposed to be good.
Yeah, and then they get the following. So anyway, I go back to, it's all that connection directly with
Yeah,
source. Yeah.
yeah, but I love that because a lot of that's true when a guru or a priest or some religion says you have to go through this other person, then they're not the right person. That is like a clue.
Interesting. Yeah. And so how does that work with you being a healer? Like if people are uncomfortable, like I know for example, Muslims are very apprehensive of going to anyone who's not of that faith. And then they think that they have to stick with the people who are working in the mosques. And those people are highly problematic because they have a lot of their own dark energy issues, you know. So I have a hard time because we're talking about referring clients. And, you know, one of the resistance is not feeling comfortable with someone like a quantum healer, right? Like this is woo-woo, this is wacky stuff, right? And it's the same kind of thing like Christians have too, you know. And so I'm curious how you know, do you work with people with all faiths and traditions, or and you also, you know, I don't know what your religious background is, if you also came from a, you know, a certain religious background, but yeah, how do you tackle some of those, you know, people when they come to you?
Yeah, such a good question. And my background is really interesting. I grew up a lot in nature. So I grew up on an island and
Mm-hmm.
my dad had a boat. And so I was in the trees a lot and I would always talk to God and the trees and animals. And I was just like, I felt like a little nymph, a forest nymph all the time. I was alone a lot. So that's
Mm,
why I think I was talking to
interesting.
God.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, so I was around a lot of Native American traditions. So in
Mm,
Alaska, Athabascan and Tlingit Indians were like my best friends. And I always thought I was one of them. And then when they'd have their ceremony and I wasn't included, I would just cry. They would have their dances and their ceremonial robes and everything. And so I think I thought I was part of that, you know, because
mm.
my best friends were, and drumming and dancing. And my Sika, her favorite saying is keep on dancing. So to me,
Nice.
like that was spirit. And then she started going to a Presbyterian church, and my parents didn't go to church. They were divorced at 3, but my dad was raised Catholic and had a very negative experience. I don't even know what happened because he just wouldn't talk about it. But for
Mm,
sure, he was severely beaten daily.
mm.
They would put paper plates in their bottoms because they would have to go to this room to be, you know, abused,
Oh,
spanked with a paddle like every day. Like,
uh,
so it was just abuse was part of him growing up. And so he kind of let go of that, of the church. And now I'm not saying that's for everyone. That was just my dad's experience. So like my grandma,
mhm.
my grandpa, they were all part of the Catholic Church. And I went to a few, but then I did start going on my own to like more Christian. And then I just experimented a lot. You know, would say, I don't know if you'd say I joined a cult, but some would say it was a cult,
Like a
embarrassingly.
commune, a little spiritual
But
commune.
I didn't go to live, but it was going that route where they were
Uh-huh.
saying, let go of your friends. And it was Christian.
Ah,
I'll say that it was traditional Christian.
interesting. Okay.
And they wanted me to move in with these other girls that were part of the church and the community.
Mm.
And so, and then I woke up to it with my ex-boyfriend because I invited him. So I was like, oh, I want to convert him. So I was totally like this
In the
born
church.
again Christian.
Yeah.
And so I've just done a lot of different things. And then Vipassana meditation. And then I started to learn about meditation. My mom took me to this retreat called the 5 Elements. And then it was getting back to nature and
Mm.
meditating. And I really resonated with that. So now I just started going to church again through the Unity Church. Are you
Oh,
familiar
okay.
with that?
I Unity, you know, I know the Universalist Unitarian. Is that
Yeah, it's
different?
not universalist,
Hmm.
but it's basically unity is we are God, that
Mm.
every person is God, is unity, you know.
Hmm.
And so I resonated with that. I didn't feel like I necessarily needed church, but I wanted to have a community for my
Hmm.
family.
Yeah.
So for my son and daughter to like have other people where they could look up to and have values and everything. So just started doing that. But as far as my clients, I would say all the people that come to me are not religious at all. So you're
Mm.
totally right.
Hmm.
They're like recovering Catholics, or they've let go of religion, or they meditate. So they already know I'm totally woo. And so I have not had any Muslims as a client or Catholic, so I think you're right that it's like, there maybe for Christian or Catholic, they're more into prayer. And I believe in like the opposite, not to ask God, to just be open, and God will speak, and your guides or whatever you're meant to hear. And so, because God is like, he's like, you can have everything you want. You don't have to ask me. That's what he's saying. So, So that's the clients they're already open. So I have to say, I'm not having like the barriers.
You're not having like religious. Yeah. Right. And I get that because, people gravitate to different, practices and different spiritual things. So like it's helpful to understand like where, the reason why I'm asking is because where you focus on your work being from light energy and from God. So sometimes I'll hear healers speak like, okay, well, I'm not healing. It's healing through me, from creator, from source, from Allah, from God,
they're
whatever
a vessel.
that is. Yeah, you're a vessel. And I think there's a lack of awareness about, I like personally, I believe as a religious person, it's more important to gravitate towards someone who's more in alignment with that concept. Like, I'm a vessel, I work directly from source energy, and this is, how it works, versus like, oh, I share your exact religious tradition and I'm a healer, because that leads to more of that like cult concept, which you had also left, where it's
that's right. I experienced that too.
Yeah.
That's right. Because that hierarchy, like, you're so right. I love your intuition and your experience and your feeling about this, because it's not like I am doing this to you, although I can have that. Sometimes I'm talking that way,
right?
More that I mean that I'm activating their healing abilities. Yes, I'm a vessel, but it's really them healing themselves.
Yes.
It's really me activating that within them that needs to be awakened. So there's something there that they need a little bit of help. And I believe as humans that we all need help. That we're not meant to heal in a silo by ourselves in a cave meditating. I believe we're meant for each other, that we're all messengers from heaven, from God, like people will help you.
Because we're connected, and we need that connectivity. Otherwise, we're turning into like, I don't want to say anything negative about it, but like monks in the mountain who aren't interacting and not having, real lived experiences. So I believe that's why it's also forcing us to live in our physical 3D world and have our interactions at our jobs and our families and our reproducing and all of these things. Otherwise, then you're leading into a very ascetic lifestyle, which creates those other problems. So that's really interesting. And I love how we are continuing to focus on the work being without an intermediary to God or to source, and that it's a valid way to clear blockages that are problems within your own self. So that is like what people are talking a lot about now, which is, self-care, self-love, self-reflection, looking inward. These are all things that we're doing in order to heal, right? It's like you have to look inward and heal your own traumas and reflect on what's creating those pattern behaviors. So it's really tapping into that self-healing model, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And still have issues that need to be healed. I know I still, on my father's side and my mother's side, there's issues that come up in my relationships that are repeating patterns. And, I'm helping others heal. And I'm also getting awareness of my own issues that need to be healed.
Interesting. And so you said it usually happens like, okay, you meet on a consult call 15 minutes, and then sometimes you have to meet, like you gave the example of the client you had where it took, 3, 4, 5 sessions. I mean, do you have a general way that this go, like how does someone generally work with you? And is it just like, then you're done, or what happens after that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that I can help a person with. Like, for example, one of my clients, we did a healing on her. We did about 3 sessions. Normally, I recommend a minimum of 3 sessions, but I have people
Mm.
that do twice a month. I do have people that do 1 session and then they're good. But I'm always like, no, I want more. I want to build a relationship and connect. But there are some people that just need a little kick. And so I do charge a lot more for 1 session because I want to encourage people to carry on.
Mm.
But I can also work through people. So, for example, this one woman, her nephew was having issues. And so I can tune into the spirit of her nephew and see if they're open for the healing. Not all spirits are ready for it or open to it, but to be in integrity, I say you don't have to ask them in the 3D world, but I can do it in the spiritual world. And I feel like that's in integrity. So she ended up doing like almost her whole family. So that was like about 9 months.
Oh, wow.
Her family. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask about this concept of like light work or consent or getting the person's consent. Obviously, when someone comes to you, they're consenting for you doing reading or clearing energy work on them. But I've also been taught or told that you should always ask permission. Like, sometimes I've been in situations where people are doing readings on me and I'm not consenting to, my energy being, so what do you, and then working on other people without their consent. Yeah. So how do you draw the lines between like, oh, you can do this work on someone or you can see what's wrong with them versus you're not allowed to, or you don't think that that's a good integrity?
Yeah, I feel like that is critical. I feel like that is a responsibility of the person that has this abilities, the healer. With psychic information, I mean, it's hard to turn off the faucet. Like, I mean, sometimes I will get downloads in like half a second. If I see someone, I can sense their essence. I know what's going on with them. And I just have to boop, turn it off. And I will ask permission, but gosh, sometimes I let my guard down and I forget. I do. And I'm just like, well,
Too much information.
this just came in for you, and then it just like all came in. So I have this one person and she was talking about her, she was suicidal. Okay. And I'm an expert in that. I really like to help people who I know it's hard for people to seek help that are suicidal, but I have helped people come back to live a life of freedom and joy.
Wow.
Yeah. And so with this person, I could see the negative entities that were talking to her.
Oh,
And
wow.
I said, those aren't you. Those voices that are telling you to kill yourself, they're not you. And we can get rid of them. And she's Christian. And she told me later she prayed about it and decided not to do it. So like, see that meeting, she wasn't really open to that possibility of it being like, okay, somebody would say maybe a ghost, but they're, anyway, but it's sometimes, like I said, there can be negative entities
Yeah.
that
Well,
try to do that.
we have, so I don't know if everyone knows a lot about what I write on, but my first book before I wrote Ascension is a New Attraction, I started writing a book that I'm titling Narcissism and the Jinn Imperative. And so in Islam, we have the concept of jinn. And are you familiar with that word at all? Like jinn and jinn?
I thought it was, no, I mean, I have heard of it, but I'm not an expert in it. I thought it was a religion, or that's Jane. Maybe that's something
Jain,
else.
that's Jain religion. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Never
That's an
mind.
Indian.
Jinn is a spirit or
So
something.
yeah, so jinn is in the unseen world. So in Islam and in the Quran, there are
Okay.
angels and things in the unseen realm. So the jinn is the negative entities and energies there, like from Satan, from the demonic side, right? And is what we would say are attaching to you. Like people will go on about their jinn problems, or I have these
I
jinn and I
see.
have those jinn. And so
Oh my
Muslims
gosh, they're
have,
really
oh, no.
awake. They're aware.
Yeah, girl, we got all the components of spirituality, and that's what I'm here to raise awareness is the fact that the jinn problems are connected to what's happening with understanding quantum energy, and the
Mm,
fact that we can work with healers like you as a quantum healer and feel safer and in more alignment with God and with source energy by removing entities potentially with this healing and this energy work, as opposed to just your local mosque uncle who's going to remove your jinn problem with some, some stuff, right? So this is a very important process of discernment in our spiritual
mm,
practice. And I believe that you're explaining, this removal of entities and energy bodies as very important, because it's obviously happening to everyone, whether they're Muslim or Christian or spirit, whatever they know or not, because they're coming in through, your weekend, aura, and you're
yeah,
absorbing energy from
that's right.
outside.
Or
Yeah. So
addictions. They come in
addiction.
through alcohol, pot, all of
Mhm.
that. They're just like, oh, it's a party now. They're not awake.
Not awake.
They're not
They're
awake.
not
Yep.
awake. They're not awake. Yes. So there's those of us that are awakening in the global consciousness awakening process. And hopefully from multiple religious traditions and backgrounds as we become aware. And yeah, so that's a big part of my work is the advocacy and awareness of the awakening process and what it means, and then relating it back to people's, practical things that they can understand in the Muslim community, which is, hey, you have a jinn problem and let's get you working with people who can help. And I love that you brought it all back to, like bad energy, weakened states of your own,
Mm-hmm.
consciousness. And, so this is awesome because, obviously I talk a lot about my podcast about ascension. And what does that mean to you? Like what does this, do people ask you, or do you talk a lot about ascension or moving, into higher levels of frequency to get rid of these negative energies?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to give an example of one of my clients that came
Okay.
to me for ringing in her ears. So,
Oh yeah,
know,
we got ascension symptoms because
yeah,
people get
that's right.
physical headaches. What do I hear? What stomachs and skin issues, rashes. Yeah, so ringing in the ears is one that I get. So yeah, let's great
Oh, then you
example.
get that one too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was helping her understand that that's what it was, that it wasn't because all these doctors that she went to spending so much money trying to heal this. I'm like, no, you're meant to hear this. You need to allow, you need to listen closely. What is the message? Why are you coming to me? Like all of this. And so I saw like in her lineage some things that needed to be healed, that she still had that like going inward more, like hiding and not really expressing all of who she was because of lack of self-confidence. And she was also smoking pot. And so I finally got to the bottom of that too. And I was like, I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, I live in Colorado, but I just feel like if you're going to ascend, I believe no drugs, no
Mm-hmm.
alcohol. It's time. Just let it go.
I
I'm
love
saying
it.
that
Well,
so
there, yeah,
easily.
yeah, I know. We all
But
struggle with
it's
those.
not helping you,
Yeah,
it's just like,
especially if it's from a place of addiction and
yeah,
codependency behavior, like
that's true. Like
substances.
occasional, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
I
Well,
just don't do it occasionally either. But yeah, I know some
that's
people do
good.
it occasionally, like whatever. But to each their own, there's no judgment. I'm not judging. I wasn't judging my client by
Right.
any means, but I was saying that's another thing too, that you don't need this pot to go to sleep. You don't
Mm,
need so she had this pattern of smoking pot to go to sleep. And
right.
that's what she thought she needed. But it was like not helping her whole ascension and healing process. So, but what I did was I activated that when I was talking about the goddess, the divine goddess in her that's strong, that's powerful,
Mm,
that
mhm.
knows that she doesn't need this, that
Yeah.
she is whole and complete and full. And there's nothing outside of her, she doesn't need this to sleep and do that. So she found that power within, which we helped activate, and is able to let that go. And not Julie, right away.
Right away like that. Okay. So it's like it can be
quick
quick.
If they're ready, like I said, a lot of people are just tried everything. And if they're ready, then it's just a one little switch, because they know they're there and they just need a little push.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you said, you get most of your clients through referrals. So people are saying, hey, I had this amazing experience and it helped this area, and if you should go too. Yeah. So that makes sense, because people, maybe a lot of times people don't know what the problem is or what to do until they hear someone who's been through the same thing or something similar. So shared the story, because that way people who are listening can also understand, hey, when I go see someone like this, like, is this something where I have a drug addiction I'm going to talk to, or I have a suicidal thought, but yeah, I definitely, I mean, it sounds like it's everything, right?
Yeah.
Mental, physical, spiritual. I mean, you also cured yourself of the cancer.
There you have physical. Yeah. That's right. But really, if you are having, obviously there's suicide hotlines, but obviously if you're having suicidal thoughts, reach out, reach out to someone that gets you. I didn't know that this was part of my purpose until my niece committed suicide. She was 19. I know, she was amazing. And her spirit came to me, and another healer saw her spirit. So he taught me that I was meant to ascend. These spirits will come to me for help.
Wow. And then you help them ascend
from the suicide to the higher frequency. Wow. Yeah. But, I want to help you before that, right? So that you don't have to pass on, and your family doesn't have to suffer, because suicide can be a pattern that repeats in the family too. So it's like, yeah, we want to save people, right, Edina?
Yeah. Like, get it.
Yeah. It's like, we get each other, and this whole thing with Jen, we're just like totally on the same page. And it's amazing to bring this awareness to humanity and just help our ascension, that we can't stop. It's happening. So get on the roller coaster.
Get it.
Hold on tight.
I love it. Ascension now.
Ascension now. Yeah. And that's why I say, let me hold your hand, or let Edina hold her hand during this process, because you might start seeing colors. You might start seeing things. You'll get psychic abilities, or like this other person having these suicidal thoughts. Like we can help you through all of that.
Wow. Yeah. There's so much. And we just talked about all kinds of things. So it's really, it's really powerful work. And it's so important, because like you said, we can't do it alone. We're not here to isolate and to just, we all have to connect on our own level, but we need healers, we need practitioners, coaches, like you said, holding hands, and support system. It sounds like really what is being most needed, and even community. So yeah, we all have that. And it was great how you explained, and you had multiple stories and things to share. Where can our listeners find you, or where do you like people to go if they want to work with you or reach out and kind of have one of these consult calls?
Yeah. So I have my website, CharissaSims.com. And my Instagram, Charissa Sims 333. So you can find me there. ZenSuccessPodcast.com.
Oh yeah,
so that's my show.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. I like to interview people. It's interesting. I like being interviewed, because I don't really go into the depth of how I work with people. So it's really nice to have this opportunity, Edina.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great. I like to capture, really what you do, how it can help people, and then, share it, spread it around. I think that this kind of little 30-40 minute conversations really help for people. If you know someone, hey, you don't need to be like, hey, you should do this with your life, or just, oh, here, listen to this. Maybe it's something that could help, maybe, and that people can kind of start to warm up. And get exposed to this information that doesn't make a lot of sense to so many people right now. I mean, I know I'm so confused on my social media. I'm hearing about the and the awakening process, Ascension. I mean, it was very confusing to me like a year or two ago when I started getting more and more exposed to this spiritually aware community and things like that. So thank you so much. Yeah, it was great hearing about your work and everything you do. And is there any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners and the audience before we wrap up here? Anything and final words of wisdom?
Yeah, and Edina knows I had this inspiration when she asked me at first. So I'll say it's never too late to live the life of your dreams, of everyone. Woo!
I love it. And yeah, that goes right along with Ascension is the new attraction, living our, like, manifesting our dream life and the things that we want. And we can all do it. We can all heal through these things. We can all become powerful forces of attraction and magnetism into our best life. So thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Okay, well, hope to have you soon. And yeah, thank you to all our listeners. This is Into the Light. I'm your host, Edina Mauvana, and hope to hear from you soon. Thanks so much, Charissa. Bye.
Bye.